Good morning, guys. It is Wednesday, February 12th. This will be our third session of the week. And last night we played around 10 and a half hours and we lost a little bit over $1,500. Gave back some of the cheese we got from Monday. It was just one of those bad nights where right when we sat down we got stuck for 3 buy-ins, getting hit with a gut shot, flopping second nut straight against the nut straight, and then we just kept couldn't fight back, getting hands like kings, getting in with ace queen on the flop and getting outdrawn, and ace king to aces, ace queen to ace king, hands like that. So it was just one of those tough nights that just didn't go our way a lot of time, but that's what happens when you go on a mega session heater, I guess. So I do have one hand history that does have some educational value to it. So let's dive right into it. So the effective stack is 1500, and the villain in this spot is a Lindian. Lindians they're fun to play against, but they can be tough because the range are wide. They can get creative, but creative in an out of line way where it doesn't make sense, or it just go nuts where they're pretty much just going kamikaze, and either you got it, or you don't. So it is Lindian's in the cutoff with around $1,500, and I am in the bun with $1,500 also. So the play goes, there's 2 limpers, and it goes to Lindian, who raises $45. So this is more on the bigger side, so I had to keep note of that. But then I looked down, I had 2 blackjacks, so I call, and the 2 limpers call also. So the pot is around $180 now, and the flop comes ace of diamond, jack of diamonds, and 10 of hearts. Gives us the middle set, but with a really wet board. So it's checked to Lindian, who bets $55. So if you notice in all of our series, we have always talked that people c-bet the bet sizes, you can pick up a tail. Well, and we always kind of picked up weak bet size as weak, but when Lindian bets on this board here $55, which is a very small bet into a $180 pot, it looks very weak, so that almost to the point where it is super strong. Like, it's one of those I'm really weak bet, please re-raise me kind of inducing kind of c-bet. Because if he really had anything weak on this board, he probably checked to try to get the showdown. If he had anything of strength, it's such a wet board that he would probably be betting big. So this seems like a really suspicious bet. So I just called to evaluate the turn. And then the turn comes the 7 of hearts, which brings now 2 heart draws. And then the 8-9 also completes the board. But I don't put him on 8-9 here at this point because I think 8-9 would check and try to see a free card. So the pot is $390 now, and Lindian checks. So if he has a range here, betting big won't get any value for us. So what I did was I just went ahead and bet $110 to make it look like maybe I have a weak ace. Maybe I'm trying to steal the pot, and see what his reaction is. Because if he does have a weak ace here and his bet was weak, then of course we get some value out of it. Or if he has some kind of pair plus draw, like something with a queen or a king in it and a pair, like 10 king queen, one of those, or jack queen, jack king. So, but then Lindian check raises to 515. So our suspicions has now been confirmed. We're up against a monster. We're not up against a something weak. So the question now is, of course, jamming here is really bad. Like, if we jam here, the only hands that we could expect to get value from is a set of 10. But a set of 10 would probably bet big here. So this is almost always king queen for the flop straight. So at this point, we're on a draw now. We just have a draw. We're behind. Pretty confident about that. So then I just call. And that makes the pot now 14-20. And the blank comes and the river comes a blank, just to a club. So Lindian bets just 625 here. And this, we know now that this is not a bluff. And if it's a value bet, like, what value hands do we beat at this point besides set of tens and a weird play ace king, maybe top and bottom, but none of those hands are betting to induce on the flop. So I end up folding, and then I turn to Lindy and I go, I folded bottom set, and he goes, I had top two. I'm like, yeah, given that we had two jack blockers. So it was kind of a little mind game here. Of course, he a few minutes later just pat me on the back and said, good fold, he flopped the straight. So we already kind of confirmed that. It was a tough spot, but I think we played it well. The only thing we might want to consider is when the turn comes the 7 of hearts, it brings two flush draws. Like the way we played on the flop and on the turn, calling a weak bet and then betting small, we could conceivably have like the 10 high flush draw, so pair plus flush draw, or on the turn we could also pick up another flush draw. So if the river, if it had hit either one of those flush draws or it paired the board, we could conceivably, if he checks, shove here and it put him in a tough spot, because now he doesn't know which flush draw we're on, whether we missed or not, or even if we had a set. And I think this was is a play I take from Peel Omaha, in that, you know, when there's two flush draws out there, and then one of them hits on the river, it makes it really tough to call a river bet, because now the player is just left guessing with no additional reads. So I don't know if I would have done it, because he's a Lindian and he can't. They don't fold. They don't like to fold, and they rather pay you off than get bluff. So that was the hand history of the day. I think we're gonna be pushing it pretty hard this week in terms of hours, because it's just that mini river series. So I'm probably gonna call it a week for working out, and then let our muscle rest a little bit, and then next week probably hit the weights harder, heavier weights. So that's it for the day. I think it's time to go do a little bit more meditating, mental training, mental exercise. Get ready, and then I'll see you in a little bit. And we are back, guys. So let's start to contemplate and reflect. Yesterday, one of the poker dealers asked me to go into more in depth about tilt, so I think that's where we'll start. So let's take a look at two situations that we're all familiar with at poker. We start the session and we get pounded, and then we grind our way back up, and at the end of the day we break even, right? So then we go home, we feel happy, we feel at least more victory, satisfied, or at least we don't feel tilted. But let's take the other scenario. We start off hot, and then throughout the session we decline until we get to the point, at the end of the day, we break even. So when we go home there, we feel uneasy. We feel like a loss. We suffer, right? And so the results are the same, but the situation, happened, a perception of the results and its impact on us is where the suffering occurs, right? It's not the results. So let's dive deeper into that part where we suffer, right? So what happens what is suffering anyways? Well, suffering at the core is we talk about mental suffering, anything that involves separation, termination, or annihilation, the end, right? So when we lose somebody, when we lose something, or when somebody says something bad about us, is a way of termination of our image, our ego. So that's where we still suffer. So let's go back to the section, the poker, right? We suffer because our perception is that we incurred a loss. We had gained something and then we lost. And that's where we suffer. When we lost and we gained, we didn't suffer anymore. So somewhere in there is where the suffering comes. So let's go even deeper, right? So if we're in the hand and we're ahead, we get in ahead and we know it, and then we get sucked out. We go on tilt. If we get it in bad and we know that we have no chance and we lose, we don't tilt as much. So you can see that our expectation and the reality or the results, the gap in between that is the cause of our suffering. When expectations and reality don't meet, then we suffer. But if our expectations and reality do meet, then things are okay and there's no suffering. So if we can see this, then we can know that that's where tilt comes in, right? So when the expectations don't meet reality, it causes a condition. We discussed this. It causes a conditions for the arising of emotions, and in this case, negative emotions. And how do we compare negative and positive emotions? Well, positive emotions tend to be more stabilized in terms of energy, right? It's when you're happy, when you're joyful, and when you're feeling pleasure, you're feeling cool and nice and easy. But when you're negative emotions, when you're angry, upset, rage, jealousy, there's a lot of energy in there. So what happens is when the conditions are there for the arising of negative emotions, and the gap between expectations and reality is wide, the negative emotion that arises is mainly rage. And rage is basically emotions that are that's beyond our control, right? It has too much energy and it just bursting out of our core, and we have no way to control it. So that's where tilt comes in, right? Tilt is because we're no longer balanced, right? We're either left or right, tilted. So that means that when we're tilted, there were conditions that caused emotions to arise, and it's natural for everybody for this, right? We're human. Conditions causes emotions, negative and positive. But what we want to work on is our ability to perceive when this happens, because to know, okay, well, I get up whenever I take a bad beat and I go on tilt and I need to control my tilt. Well, that's good to know, but it has no value to you until you actually live it, experience it, right? So for us as poker players, we experience this tilt, and then at that moment when we do experience that tilt, it gives us an opportunity to to see the tilt, to see through from the origin, the conditions, and the rising of the emotions to the rage and to the uncontrollable energy that we now have. And if we can see this, then at least we can start watching it. And every time that this happens, we watch it. What happens is that the tilt and the pain and the rage, it gets less and less and less because we see it for what it is. Doesn't come us and hit us like from the blind side. We see everything. So, and when you see this, it means that you don't know, you not only know it, but you understand it, and now you have gained insight into it. And that's where our goal right here to set this reflection is to help you gain insight on tilt and the origination of tilt. And if you could see that the tilt is a result of conditions, and we are humans, and the rising of tilt is natural, then at least we could then take steps to handle it better and be able to control that rage and be able to harness that energy better, so that next time it doesn't take over us, and then we get better and stronger. And this is what this is basically building on the core of this entire vlog is mental fitness. Is that if we keep working at it, we keep piercing, and we keep experiencing it, and we maintain that right thinking, right action, and right speech, each time it gets easier and easier, to the point where now eventually it doesn't phase us anymore, because we have built up stamina and we built up the strength to control ourselves. But if it sounds easier, right? So one of the tricks that I know that works is, I tell people, is if you are feeling down or tilted, just put on a smile, fake it. Because what happens is that when you do fake a smile and you hold that smile for a while, it exercises a lot of the muscles in your facial that triggers either some kind of a release in the hormones of the brains, or it tricks your brains into thinking you're happy. So that if you keep smiling, eventually for some reason you will feel happier. So when you do tilt, try, muster up that little effort to just put on a smile for a few seconds if you can, and then work on it a little bit more and more. So this is how the best way to handle tilt is not to just escape from it by, okay, I'm gonna put on my music, I'm gonna do something, or feed into it by playing bad and going crazy. The best thing to do is to do nothing and go back to the core, which is just watch your breathing. And as you watch your breathing, what you're doing is you're no longer thinking. And if you're no longer thinking, then you're not dwelling on what happened. So now your perception starts to change, and because thoughts leads to perception. If you don't have thoughts, then you don't have perception. Eventually the tilt will go away. And we know this because we tilt, but throughout the day, as we stop thinking about it, it goes away. So work on that. And I think that's it. I can't think of any more. I'd like to be able to give more insight, but I think that's it. So at the end of the day, the same thing goes true. It's gotta practice. It doesn't take any additional work. It just takes effort. And in the situation of tilt, it takes super effort in order to overcome the rage and the energy that has taken over us. See ya tomorrow.